Hi everybody, this is Boris Lasberg for BK Forex. This is the trade setup for 117 to see how the currencies are going to be trading for the 24-hour session today. Past performance not indicative of future results. Trading Forex carries a high level of risk when not suitable for investors, and the high degree of leverage can work against you as well as for you. So before deciding to trade any such leverage products, you should carefully consider your investment objectives, level of experience, and risk appetite. The possibility exists that you can sustain the loss sum of all your initial investment, and therefore you should not invest money you cannot afford to lose. You should be aware of all the risks associated with trading on margin and seek advice from an independent financial advisor if you have any doubts. The information contained here is strictly for your own general information, and the opinions presented do not take into account your particular individual objectives and financial situation or needs. So all investors should obtain advice based upon their own unique situation before making any investment decision. BK Forex LLC is not responsible for any losses taken on advice by readers, and if you're seeking investment, legal, tax, or accounting advice, please seek advice from a competent professional advisor. Okay, I'm actually going to start right now. Where's my calendar? Here we go. I want to show you the calendar today because before we look at the charts, there was one big event. This was it. This is the key today. Aussie deployment missed huge today in Asia session, and that's been a drag on the Aussie and a drag a little bit on risk as we traded Asia. Starting to change that up a little bit, but it's still a big underlying negative factor as we're opening up Europe. Not much on the European calendar today. We have just PPI from Switzerland, monthly bulletin from ECB. This will be interesting actually to take a look at to see if there's any sign of or hint of improvement as far as European activity goes. But the really only other big event on the calendar today in the European session is the Spanish auction. Now, Spanish auction coming up in about an hour. Last time was very, very strong, had a very strong uptake. People are going to be looking both at yield and the bid to cover ratio to see if there's still tremendous amount of demand for the Spanish bonds. That's obviously the one positive factor that could push the euro higher if it comes in surprisingly strong. Into the North American session, very little on the calendar as well. Just permits, unemployment claims, housing starts, and then Philly Fed at 10. So not really much going on as far as the economic calendar today. A lot of the flow is probably going to be driven by rhetoric and whatever is going on in Washington as well as in Europe. Now let's look at the chart because you can see really what happened. So what's fascinating is that the Australian employment number come out, and the market initially had a negative reaction and came back. Like it went down to 30 and then it came back up, and then we had a whole slew of sell orders get triggered. We took out the day's lows, we took out the 105 handle, consolidated underneath there, and as usual, which is what Aussie does all the time, we'll take out major level and then consolidate and see if we can retrace against it. So I think to me the key thing here is, can we recapture the day's lows today at 1530? That case, that could put the bias much more to neutral, in a sense that at that point we would have had worked off most of the oversold conditions here, and perhaps begin to re-rally. This is typical Aussie action, where it completely reacts to the news and then retraces most of the price action. If we break the 105 back to the downside, and more importantly, if we break the day's lows today and continue to go lower, that really would set up a much more negative structure, because you see this 105 has been big support. So we took it down to 105, then the buyers tested it over here. We start to reverse down. The next level of support is 104.50, and that could mean that once we break the 105, we're pretty much going to be headed towards that area. So it's going to be an interesting trade in Aussie. Clearly, the overhead to the upside is kind of very negative. We would have to work off all of this resistance for the last few days. At the very least, it'd have to come back all the way up to 105.70 in order to completely neutralize this negative move. So the bias for the time being is negative, but need to see more further downside negative momentum in order to confirm that we could have a fall towards the 105.450. That's going to be probably the more interesting chart of the day as we get positioning both ways. Euro initially sold off also on the news off of Aussie. I mean, it got dragged down to 32.60, but then came back up. But if you notice, the euro has been in a very, very tight range. I just want to come back here, pull it out. Look at this incredibly low compression. We've just literally had no movement, basically 50 pips worth of movement over a day and a half. And generally, when you get these kind of tight compression areas, you're going to get resolution one way or the other. So if we start to break out here, 33.25 is the highs. We start to break out above the highs. It's a very reasonable chance that we could probably capture 33.50 and move perhaps even for a second retest of the 3400. This has been the big negative that's been weighing on the euro as we stand. This area, 3260, has just been a rock. Tested once, twice, three times. So, if we come back down, start breaking it down. More importantly, I think if we break all the way down to 32, below 3250, that would put a much more negative spin on the euro. That would put a distribution top here, and that would, as you can see right over here, essentially pretty much put the end to this counter trend rally and probably pull us all the way down to 3200, maybe even 3150 as we start to redistribute the euro. So I think it's an interesting situation now where we either break to the upside, perhaps the test of the recent highs, or if this support of 3260 does not hold, if we essentially come back and have a second run to the downside here, it's very likely we're going to unwind all the way down to 3200 as the day proceeds. Cable has been also very quiet, not much action. Although yesterday, obviously, we tested the 160, still testing the 160. Doesn't look, I've been negative cable for a while, and it really doesn't look like this counter trend rally is producing anything. So still very anemic. Lows on the cable here are 59.75. A break of those, if we can go back on more. Let me see if I can just show you guys. I guess I'm gonna have to go down to the daily charts just to yeah. So we start breaking the 59.75 lows. There's nothing here. It's just air pockets all the way down to 59, and really not my major support until 59.50. So cable's having this very anemic counter trend rally off of several days of selling off. But again, we turn down to the downside. This pretty much party is over for cable as far as any kind of support goes. And then dollar yen has been very resilient. Actually, has been surprisingly strong. We tested this 88. Yesterday's bounce back off the 88 was very impressive. But I still continue to believe that this kind of downside action is very indicative of the fact that we've had such a massive rally that we do need to work this off. Generally, I think basically if you look at the hourlies here, what happens with the yen is we'll have a test, come back, and then perhaps have a retest. So here, as far as the yen situation goes, we have to look at the 88.50 first to the downside, but more importantly, a second fall through 8800 that does not offer us support may finally slice us all the way down for a test of the 8700 support. It looks to be how the price structure is going to set up if we get a fall to the downside. Conversely, a back retest to the 89.50 is going to be a triple top retest of this area. So far, this double top is very much dominating and operating. We haven't even been able to clear the 89 handle to kind of put ourselves into neutral territory. We clear 89 handle, we put ourselves much more into neutral territory where we run towards the 89.50. But we drop back below 88.50, it's more burn and churn, and a possibility again of a test of 88, which is a key support that then takes us all the way through to 87 as we get the full unwind in dollar yen. And that pretty much mirrors the story of euro yen, which again recovered the 18 handle here in a similar fashion, but still struggling. Move down distribution here. Here, yesterday's lows of 16.50 very key. We start taking out those lows. We pretty much want to start targeting the 1500 level as the full unwind in the yen process after this massive rally. Now, speaking of the rallies, the Euro Swiss just refuses to stop. And look at this move here, 24.35 as we speak. And as a matter of fact, as I'm looking right now, I see the euro starting to start to break out its session highs here, going towards the 33.24 level. So it's clearly starting to pick up on the risk here and move towards the higher end of that range. I'll come back to the euro for a second, but look at the Euro Swiss all the way up to 24.34, probably 24.50 very much in view now. Still think that if you look at the it looks like the euro just went through the highs of the session. Still think that basically if you go back to much longer session, this 125 area is going to pose a pretty serious zone of resistance to Euro Swiss. So it's moving, but we'll really have to clear a pretty serious hurdle here at 125. Still, though, very, very impressive move on the Euro Swiss as we start the day. Euro dollar back again, just to review, we did clear right now pretty much this session high from yesterday, and now obviously we're going to see if we can start to make a little bit more of a run higher as risk comes up. This is all pretty much in, I think, anticipation and response of the Spanish auction. So we better have some good news, otherwise we're going to have a big reversion back to the lows. But for now, the 3260 level held. We're starting to break out to the highs, and the bias looks like it wants to go to the upside as we try to test perhaps the recent highs at 3350 and more importantly at the 34 level as the day proceeds. So that's how the day sets up. Wishing you guys the best of luck and the best of trading, and I'll see you guys later.